It's pretty wild to think about how quickly technology is changing the way we learn.
Hmm.
You hear about AI that can grade papers now and like personalized learning programs that adapt to each student.
Yeah, it's moving fast.
It really makes you wonder, could we ever reach a point where AI actually replaces human teachers? It feels like
Yeah.
a huge question with, well, a lot of different angles to consider in today's educational landscape.
It absolutely is a crucial question, and the material you've gathered for this deep dive really gets into the heart of that complexity.
Okay.
We're looking at arguments for and against a greater role for AI, some really interesting examples of how it's being used in schools right now, and also some, important things to think about as we navigate these changes.
Right.
Our goal here is basically to unpack all of this for you, the listener, so you can get a solid understanding of what's at stake and what the future might hold.
Okay, let's dive right in then. We're already seeing AI pop up in education in some pretty significant ways, like you mentioned, ChatGPT helping to assess writing, and these AI tutoring programs becoming more common. What's fueling this push? Why is everyone talking about AI in education right now?
But it really touches on some fundamental aspects of how we approach education itself,
Mm-hmm.
how we teach, how students learn, how we measure their progress.
Mm-hmm.
But it also connects to broader trends around the impact of technology on society, the future of jobs, and even our understanding of what learning and development really mean in the 21st century. And the sheer scale of this is quite something.
How so?
A 2023 UNESCO report indicated that around 40% of schools worldwide are already experimenting with some form of AI tool.
40%. Wow, that's a big number already.
It is, yeah. And the economic aspect is also a major driver. The educational technology market, EdTech, it's projected to hit around $404 billion by 2025.
Yeah.
That kind of investment really shows the momentum behind the technologies. But like you said at the start, the core issue is whether AI can truly replicate those uniquely human elements that we associate with great teaching.
Right, that's the tension.
That's the central tension we need to explore. And as we go deeper, we'll bump into some key academic ideas. For instance, pedagogical innovation that just refers to new and effective teaching methods.
Okay.
We'll also touch on cognitive development, which is, how our brains learn and process information, and automation bias. That's our tendency to over-rely on automated systems, sometimes even when they're wrong.
Automation bias. That sounds important to keep in mind, especially with grading.
Definitely.
So, okay, let's look at the arguments for bringing more AI into education. What's the core of that case?
A really strong argument revolves around the idea of personalized learning, but crucially personalized learning at scale.
Okay, what does that mean exactly?
The idea here is that AI programs can analyze a huge amount of data about a student's learning their strengths, where they struggle, the pace they learn at, and then customize the educational content specifically for them.
Mm-hmm.
Platforms like Sentry Tech are a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Their AI can apparently detect in real time if a student is finding a particular math concept difficult,
Right.
and immediately provide targeted exercises and support to help them catch up. The potential here is for a level of tailored education that, well, a single teacher trying to juggle a whole classroom just can't realistically manage on their own.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's the promise of truly individualized learning paths.
That makes sense. It's like having a super focused tutor available for every single student. What other advantages are being highlighted?
Another significant benefit that's often cited is AI's potential to break down barriers, to expand access to education.
Heck so.
Well, think about students in underserved communities, or maybe those who just can't afford expensive private tutoring. AI-powered tools can offer affordable and sometimes even free educational support. The example of startups like Imbibe in rural India, which provides STEM tutoring through AI, really illustrates this point.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's just the factor of availability. AI tutoring systems, learning platforms, they can be accessible 24/7.
Right, anytime learning.
Exactly. It lets students learn at their own convenience and pace, which can be a huge advantage for many different types of learners.
So personalized learning and broader access, those are definitely compelling points. I also seem to recall reading something about how AI could lead to, like, fairer assessments. Is that part of the argument?
That's right, yeah. The argument is that AI grading systems have the potential to be more objective.
More objective how?
Well, tools like Turnitin's Revision Assistant, for example, can evaluate written work based on specific criteria like structure, grammar, the logical flow of arguments.
Okay.
The idea is that this can help minimize some of the unintentional human biases that might creep into grading, whether it's related to a student's handwriting, their language style, or even maybe pre-existing impressions a teacher might have. By focusing on more defined criteria, the hope is that AI could contribute to more equitable evaluations.
That sounds really promising in theory, but I have to imagine there are some pretty significant drawbacks or limitations to relying so much on algorithms in something as complex and, frankly, human as education.
Oh, absolutely. Even the biggest enthusiasts for AI in education acknowledge the limitations. One really important concern is the lack of what you might call common sense or real-world understanding.
Okay, like what?
Well, while an AI might be excellent at spotting grammatical errors in an essay, it could totally struggle to grasp the nuances of a really creative or unconventional piece of writing.
Right, it might just see it as wrong.
Precisely, potentially leading to a poor evaluation of something actually quite brilliant. And there's also the very real risk of that automation bias we mentioned earlier.
Right, trusting the machine too much.
Exactly. It's where we tend to place too much faith in the outputs of automated systems, even when we might have a gut feeling they're not quite right. In a school setting, this could mean teachers or students just accepting an AI's judgment or suggestion without applying their own critical thinking.
Those are really critical points to consider because education is about so much more than just delivering information, isn't it? There's that huge human element involved.
Exactly.
Which brings us nicely to the other side of the argument. Why are human teachers still considered so essential?
Precisely. The arguments for the irreplaceable role of human teachers often zero in on those deeply human aspects of learning that seem incredibly difficult, maybe impossible, for AI to replicate. One of the most important is emotional intelligence and the ability to provide mentorship. Teaching isn't just about transmitting facts. It's about inspiring students, building their self-confidence, nurturing their social and emotional growth. There was a Stanford study, for instance, that indicated a significant link between students who had empathetic teachers and, interestingly, higher academic achievement.
Higher achievement with empathy. Interesting.
Yeah. So think about a student who's clearly feeling anxious before a big test. Can an AI truly recognize those subtle cues, the body language, the tone of voice, and then offer the kind of personalized support and encouragement that a human teacher can? It seems highly unlikely, at least with current tech.
Definitely not. A teacher can really read a room, pick up on those nonverbal signals that an algorithm would probably miss entirely.
Exactly. And that leads right into another crucial area, fostering critical thinking.
Okay.
While AI can be very effective at structured tasks and providing information, human teachers play this vital role in encouraging what's known as divergent thinking.
Divergent thinking.
Yeah, the ability to explore multiple perspectives, to engage in nuanced interpretation, to think outside the box. Imagine a classroom discussion about a novel like, say, 1984.
Okay.
A human teacher can guide that conversation, pose open-ended questions like, what if? Or, why do you think Orwell chose this specific word? Encouraging students to think critically and develop their own insights.
Right, push them beyond just the plot summary.
Exactly. An AI might be able to summarize the plot or identify key literary devices, sure, but it would likely struggle to facilitate that kind of dynamic, open-ended intellectual exploration.
And we certainly saw how adaptable and, frankly, crucial human teachers were during unexpected crises like the pandemic, right?
Absolutely. That was a real stress test. When the pandemic suddenly shifted learning online, teachers had to adapt incredibly quickly, essentially reinventing their methods overnight.
Total chaos for them, I bet.
For sure. But beyond just delivering digital resources, many teachers really emphasize the critical need to provide emotional support and maintain a sense of connection for their students during a really scary, challenging time. As one teacher put it in the sources, their students needed more than just online assignments. They needed reassurance, they needed a sense of community, that kind of adaptability and emotional responsiveness that's very difficult to program into an algorithm.
Yeah, you can't code empathy, really. And what about the argument that AI might ultimately be more cost-effective for education systems in the long run? That always comes up.
It does, yeah. That's a point that often surfaces. But it's really important to think about what we truly value in education.
Okay.
If we see education primarily as just, the efficient delivery of information, then yeah, cost effectiveness might become the dominant factor.
Yeah.
But if we recognize the fundamental importance of what's sometimes called relational pedagogy.
Relational pedagogy?
Yeah, basically teaching that's built on strong relationships, trust, and genuine human connection between teachers and students, then simply replacing teachers with AI based on cost alone risks, undermining a really essential aspect of learning. Education isn't a factory producing identical outputs. It's this complex, messy, beautiful process of human development.
Relational pedagogy and divergent thinking, those are such important concepts to keep front and center when we consider the unique contributions of human teachers. So, okay, given these clear strengths and weaknesses on both sides, does it have to be in either situation, AI or humans? Or is there a potential middle ground?
Well, the material you've gathered strongly suggests that the most promising path forward isn't either, but rather involves AI and human teachers working in collaboration.
Ah, the hybrid approach.
Exactly. It's less about one completely replacing the other and more about how each can augment and enhance the educational process.
That makes a lot of sense. Can you give me some specific examples of how this kind of collaboration might actually look in a classroom?
Certainly. One obvious area where AI can be incredibly valuable is in taking over some of the more routine, time-consuming admin tasks that often eat up a teacher's day.
Like grading bubble sheets.
Exactly. Or even providing initial feedback on more structured assignments. There are tools like GradeScope that use AI to assist with grading. The benefit: it frees up teachers to dedicate more of their precious time to higher-level interactions with students, like providing personalized mentorship, developing more creative lesson plans, or giving really detailed feedback on complex projects.
Okay, so automating the grunt work. What else?
Another model we're seeing is the development of hybrid classroom environments. So maybe AI tutoring systems handle the more repetitive drills and practice exercises like math facts or vocabulary,
Like the rote stuff.
while the human teacher focuses on leading group projects, facilitating those in-depth discussions we talked about, and providing more individualized support to students who are really struggling with core concepts. We're even seeing examples of this kind of blended learning approach being piloted in places like Finland.
Interesting. So AI essentially acts as kind of, I don't know, superpowered teaching assistant, taking care of logistics so teachers can focus on the human connection and deeper learning.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. It's about finding that optimal balance where we can leverage the efficiency and the personalized capabilities of AI while still preserving the crucial empathy, creativity, and critical thinking skills that human educators bring. This kind of synergistic approach really does have the potential to create a more effective and honestly richer learning experience for students.
Okay, let's try and synthesize all of this. As we start to wrap up, what are the key things we should really take away from this deep dive into AI in education? What are the absolute must-remember points?
Okay, I think the core takeaways are these. First, AI offers some really significant potential advantages: efficiency, personalized learning at scale, wider access to resources. That's undeniable. It could also help make some types of assessment more objective.
Right. The pros.
The pros. However, and this is a big however, it is absolutely crucial to recognize that human teachers bring irreplaceable qualities: mentorship, emotional intelligence, fostering those higher-order thinking skills like critical analysis and creativity, and just sheer adaptability in challenging situations. These are things AI, as it stands, can't replicate.
So the future isn't really about replacing teachers with robots, but more about forging a strong partnership, a collaboration.
That seems to be not only the most likely scenario, but also, frankly, the one that holds the most promise for creating truly effective and well-rounded educational experiences. And actually, on that note, there's a quote from Bill Gates that seems particularly relevant here. He said, "Technology is just a tool. In terms of getting kids working together and motivating them, the teacher is the most important."
The teacher is the most important.
Yeah. It really underscores the enduring, essential value of that human element in education, even as technology advances.
That's a really powerful quote to think about. So as we finish up this deep dive into AI in education, here's something maybe for everyone listening to mull over. As these AI tools inevitably become more sophisticated, more integrated into our schools, how will that balance between the tools and the human interaction continue to shift?
A crucial question.
And what will the long-term implications of that evolving balance be? Not just for how students learn day to day, but maybe for the very definition, the very role of being an educator in the future. It really makes you consider that unique human connection at the heart of learning, doesn't it? And how technology can best serve to enhance rather than diminish that fundamental bond.